Now hear this. Empire Total War is coming to iOS and Android, and it's coming this autumn, meaning you'll be able to conquer or create a vast trade empire anywhere you want, whether on your phone or tablet or over in East Asia or North America. And here's why this is a great thing. We will talk about more than just this port in this video. Over the years, I've come to admire Ferrell's work on the Total War series as a whole. I think it's great that their partnership with CA has allowed them to create full-sized versions of the Total War games not only on Mac or Linux, but also on mobile platforms, where especially the latter comes across as quite revolutionary, particularly on a platform where a bunch of strategy games are just dumbed down and arcadey versions of what we normally get on PC. And ever since Ferrell did a banger job on Medieval 2, I've actually been very excited for a possible Empire mobile port. And if there are games you're excited for or have been holding off buying, make sure to check out the proud partner of this channel, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming offers constant discounts on both upcoming, brand new, and old games even when Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo do not. And I love saving on games that are not on sale elsewhere. So if you're missing a Total War game, Age of Empires, Mythology, Paradox games, or just anything else, Instant Gaming most likely has a juicy discount for you. Find the best sales by using my link below, especially if you want to support the channel and the work we do here. The first reason why I'm excited is because I think Empire is a great game in many respects, and one that literally hasn't been touched in full with new releases or major updates since Ferrell themselves made the Empire Mac and Linux ports back in 2014. The second reason is because I've always had a feeling that Empire is the game in the franchise which actually would make the most sense for a mobile platform experience. Think about it. Due to the line warfare and slower pace of the battles, you're not as frantically moving units around the battlefield as in Medieval 2 or Rome. Cannons can be placed down and in some instances just left alone. And similarly, naval battles are also rather slow, making the touch controls, in theory at least, a lot easier and chill to use. Even though of course, as with Medieval 2, Empire on iPad will allow for mouse and keyboard gameplay. And on the campaign map, due to the inherent modernizations in Empire already, like moving an army somewhere and being able to click off of them and do something else at the same time, I think even the campaign will feel a lot more organic and modern to play, both for new and old audiences. Now let me say this, whether you wanted this title or not, I fully believe this is great news if you're like me and wish to eventually see or at least hope for either a Medieval 2 or Empire Remastered. And the reasons are twofold. First, the mobile ports of our dear Total War games, these so far being Rome and Medieval 2, are generally very good ports. Medieval 2 especially faithfully recreated the original experience in terms of visuals, scope, and even by adding new and much wanted additions like being able to actually view your cities in peacetime and manually choosing your faction heir, which ironically makes the mobile version of Medieval 2 technically the best one. But second, and importantly, mobile ports and the continued partnership between Creative Assembly and Ferrell Interactive, the latter who actually makes these ports, can translate into something more. You see, in 2018, Ferrell released Rome for mobile devices, and 3 years later in 2021, they made Rome Remastered for PC, meaning a fully fledged remastered experience with all new visuals and vastly improved modding capabilities, which the RIS mod is just one amazing example of. Sadly, despite delivering a beautiful game and polishing it over time, a bunch of people dogged on Remastered even before release, which I think impacted sales negatively. And even though there definitely is a bunch of legitimate negative things to say about many of the original Rome bugs which continued into Remastered, I think the overall experience is mostly great. Now, a year later, in April 2022, Ferrell released Medieval 2 for iOS, which in my opinion was a fantastic port, not just because it faithfully recreated the experience, but it even added long requested features like again, viewing your cities in peacetime and choosing your faction heir. When we do the math, roughly 3 years passed between the release of Rome for mobile and Rome Remastered, and no other mobile ports released between those releases. It has now been roughly 2.5 years since the release of Medieval 2 for mobile, regrettably without an announcement of a Medieval 2 Remastered. It is important to remember, however, that all of Ferrell's announcements happened very shortly before release. Rome Remastered had just a month between announcement and release, Medieval 2's waiting period was just about 3 weeks actually, and even though there's no release date yet for Empire, the release window suggests we won't be waiting much longer than a month or two, since I do believe autumn 2024 suggests either an October or November release date at the latest. But that's also the thing. Feral Interactive moving directly from Medieval 2 Mobile to Empire Mobile without a Medieval 2 Remastered in between is, as I see it, not the best news from a remaster fan perspective. Even though Medieval 2 Remastered seemed like the obvious next step after first a ROM Remastered and then a Medieval 2 mobile port, I think enough time has passed that it's time to at least start worrying that CA and Feral have genuinely shelved the plans for it. If those plans were ever in place, of course. And I think we should have this conversation, because I think it's important to both us the players and for CA and Feral to hear. First of all, making remasters of older titles, especially titles that are 20 years old, is no easy job. The method and logic for how modern systems work is completely different than they were back in the early 2000s, and making something today and back then does in many cases not translate at all without massive effort. And for someone who knows virtually nothing about game development and even less about game remastering and modernization, I think both I and others take for granted the effort and time that goes into making a ROM remastered. That doesn't mean it's not possible, just that a lot more work, time, money, and effort goes into it than you might think. Let's also consider that for someone like me who wants nothing more than a true Medieval 2 and Empire Remastered games, that these titles are a lot more complicated in their game designs than ROM ever was. A lot more time will inevitably go into developing those titles, meaning they demand larger investments on all counts. In other words, it is understandable why CA and Feral would be cautious about them. That being said though, and here comes the counter-argument, namely why these games should be made, both Medieval 2 and Empire have so much more potential than ROM ever did, and in some ways, I think the path there would be easier than for ROM. Think about it. After working on all of their mobile ports, which I'm certain takes a lot of engineering skills to port those titles over to a completely new format, and on ROM Remastered too, you'd assume that Feral has gone away with a bunch more experience now, which might be why we're able to see an Empire be made for mobile platforms at all. Second, due to the relatively modern frameworks of Medieval 2 and Empire compared to ROM, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that despite being more complicated games, that developing for them could be somewhat easier. Third, I genuinely think that despite me personally loving ROM Remastered and its amazing mods, that ROM was the worst title for a remastered version. Sure, it might have been the one in most need of one, and an obvious starting point in a remaster saga where the oldest 3D title gets remade first, especially since the original release is kind of broken on modern hardware. But a Medieval 2 and Empire Remastered? I think those would be absolute godsends, not only because both of their campaigns in many respects for modern standards are a lot more complicated and diverse than the original ROMs, but also because of how much better they originally looked and felt. Medieval 2 and Empire already look good, their animations are miles ahead of ROMs. In other words, despite both of them aging, their base frameworks are so much better than ROMs, and I honestly believe that a Medieval 2 and Empire Remastered games would be some of the best looking in Total War history. Lastly, for two titles that in Medieval 2's case is arguably the most beloved of them all, and in Empire's case is begging for a remaster with bug fixes, a few updated mechanics and polishing, I can't see any other reality than one where they would both sell like gangbusters. A Medieval 2 Remastered especially could even be better than a pure Medieval 3 honestly, simply because of everything Medieval 2 does already and how Feral might be able to push the modding limits once again, just like they did with ROM. And just imagine if Empire could have its modding limits opened up, perhaps allowing for map modding and city modding. All of this feels like it's on the table, and I feel like the wallets of fans like myself are practically gaping in agony for the chance to buy these remasters. Sorry for that visual image, I guess. All of that being said, I am very excited to see what Feral does with Empire for mobile, and I'm seriously considering getting an iPad just for the opportunity to play the ultimate version of arguably the Total War game in most need of some sweet polish and tender care. Let me know what you think of this topic, and tell me if you're excited for Empire for mobile, and if you want to see more remasters as well. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and check out Instant Gaming by following my link below for some amazing savings on the games you want. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!